Explicit instruction is a framework or a methodology for presenting instruction in a way that leads the students from their first encounter with new knowledge and skills on a clear path from first learning to where they have acquired the knowledge and can use what they're learning. At first glance, it's really not that different from traditional instruction. You see the instructor presenting information, you see practice, you see application, but there are different purposes and emphases for each stage of the instruction in explicit instruction from traditional instruction, and those differences are pretty important. Explicit instruction is very adaptable. It works equally well for one-to-one instruction or small groups or whole group instruction. It's a fully scaffolded process, so the instructor is providing all the support that the students need from the first phase through final application, gradually reducing the amount of support so that as students gain proficiency and confidence, they accept more responsibility for the learning. The instructor begins by explaining the skill or the knowledge or the strategy that's being learned, including a rationale for why the students are learning it, and that's an important difference, and then moves into practice and finally application. The instructors and the learners work together until the learners show that they are able to use the information independently.
One of the books that I put on your table is a pre-GED book. So I want you to find that first. And I want you to turn to page 102. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions. And if you learn them all and memorize them, then you're going to have half the battle won. All right, they spell out a band called Fanboys. If you put them in this order. Okay, I didn't memorize them in this order, but you can memorize them in this order. So what does F stand for? What is A? And nor, but, for, whoops, yet, and so. Okay. Now, when you use one of these 7 words to join 2 sentences, not join anything, but just 2 sentences, it's always going to have a comma in front of it.
It's very important, especially for these students, to have explicit instruction, to give them exactly what is expected, and then if they don't quite get it, you explain it again. Because I have worked with students before that have learning disabilities, and I would guess that most of my students in here have a learning disability, whether it's been diagnosed or not. And so, you know, you just have to, you can kind of read their eyes like, you know, the deer in the headlights, you know, thing, or, you know, you can tell whether somebody gets it or not. And then most of the students feel comfortable about asking me to repeat it again, or that they're not quite sure. And I've told them, I said, I don't have ESP, so you're going to have to ask me if you don't understand. So I find that it's very important to let them know exactly, you know, what's expected in the steps. Now, when we do this exercise, we do these sentences. Why do we do them? What is the point in that?
Make sure you understand the word.
All right, to make sure that you understand what the word means, or that you recall, and that you can recall it. Excellent. Okay, all pens and pencils down. Okay, I will give you an example of a sentence, and then I want you to write one with your particular unit. Now, what I tried to do today is be very clever. I don't know if I succeeded. But I'm using 2 words in the sentence. I'm using one from each group.
Oh.
Okay.
You have to do that too, or you just did that?
I did that.
Okay.
If you'd like to try it, that's fine, but if not, just do a sentence from your group. Number 1. I was eager to do something new, although it's not my tendency to do so. Okay, let's set up a skydiving date.
Next weekend?
Sure. Okay, so I use the words eager and tendency. No, yeah. Eager to do something new. All right, now it's your turn. Write a sentence with either eager or tendency, whichever group you are.
The instructor uses positive feedback throughout the process to support the learning. Explicit instruction was originally developed for use with learning disabled students, but there is a strong evidence base to support the idea that it's a very effective teaching technique for all learners, and in particular our adult basic skills students.
Okay, let's see how we did. All right, we're looking at Josh's. All right, he had two that were the same, so that was easy, right? However, and therefore, those are connective adverbs, okay? Because, and although are subordinate conjunctions. And but, and yet, and for, and so. Good job.
The first step in explicit instruction is to provide a clear explanation to the students. And this explanation is different from traditional instruction because it not only contains an outline of what is the new knowledge or skill or concept that we're going to be learning, but also why are we learning this. If you walk into a third grade classroom and ask the students why they're doing a math worksheet, you'll probably get the answer because the teacher told us to do this. The ultimate goal of the learning is in the teacher's hands in that case. But with adult learners, they benefit and are encouraged and motivated by knowing how it is that this learning will help them.
We're going to try to go to Moss Landing and kind of take a tour of one of the condos there, and then we'll get a floor plan and use it to decide on carpet and flooring and paint and how much we need to get of each and how to buy it. And we're not going to really buy it, and how much it would cost. And we're going to use all the formulas that are in the math book, almost all of them, to design, I guess, or to decorate this one place in our way. So that'll be fun.
Saying that because the teacher told me to do it is not sufficient and not really respectful of adult learners. Learner engagement is increased by the students knowing what it is that they're learning. So if, for example, you're doing a vocabulary lesson, explaining to the students that learning these words will help them understand what they read and will help them understand what they hear in a lecture situation gives them a little bit of a basis on which to ground their learning and be more engaged in it.
Why do we still do vocabulary?
So we can build up vocabulary skills.
All right, so that you can build up your vocabulary
Skills.
your vocabulary skills, okay? And why is that important? What does that help us in the long run? How does that help us in the long run?
It helps us communicate better.
The test.
All right, it helps us communicate, it helps us to read better. What was that, Brenda?
And the test.
And it helps you in the TABE
Social
test,
skills.
okay? It helps in the social skills. Because how do we communicate with people?
Our voices. Vocabulary.
Okay, let's see. Raise your hand, because I'm having everybody shout at the same time. Brenda.
Our vocabulary.
All right, with our vocabulary,
Our
we
grammar.
communicate. All right, and the way we say things, okay? Savannah, what was?
Same thing.
The same thing?
He hit it
okay?
on the nail.
He hit the nail on the head.
The nail on the head. Well.
One of our idioms from yesterday. Roger, what was your comment?
I think I said to communicate.
Okay, we communicate, yes.
You can communicate by writing,
All right, we communicate by writing. It's not just a verbal communication, it's by writing also. So all of these things help us with our communication skills, whether it's verbal or communication by writing.
The other thing that's included in the explanation part of explicit instruction is a clear outline of what is the procedure that we're going to do today. You want the students to know what's expected of them, what is the goal for this learning, and you want to reduce their anxiety level. In many adult classrooms, the adults are somewhat hesitant to ask if they don't understand what the teacher is explaining to them or what they're expected to do. They just sort of assume that, well, if she didn't tell me, must be I'm supposed to know this. Explicit instruction eliminates that problem. You reduce anxiety and increase motivation by using this process. Modeling. Many teachers are familiar with the I do, we do, you do formula, and that fits with explicit instruction very well. Modeling is the I do portion of the lesson. Modeling is a very natural way for humans to learn. If you think back a couple of centuries, the way people learned their jobs was through apprenticeship, through watching a master builder or craftsman and then mimicking with feedback, with corrective instruction while they were learning that skill, and after a while they would have acquired proficiency and be able to have mastered their trade. Same thing with children. You see children quite often watching mom and dad at their tasks and then mimicking playing at cooking dinner or washing the car or whatever. It's a very natural way to learn. These are physical skills that I've been talking about, but modeling is equally effective and really especially important when thinking skills are what is being learned, because thinking skills are not transparent. Our students quite often are not able to intuit a path from reading a passage to arriving at conclusions. They don't know what the mental process, what the thinking path is. So to model by a think aloud the process that a skilled reader would go through from reading the passage to arriving at reasonable conclusions is very instructive and illuminating for our students. Modeling doesn't have to take a long time. This is a portion of the instruction where the activity level of the learner engagement is very low. They're just observing and drinking in. So it doesn't have to take a long time, but you can extend the modeling process by pulling the students into it and asking for examples and applications of what you're going to be learning from the students.
A lot of people think that they know nothing about physics and they know nothing about chemistry. So we talk about that at the very first of the lesson, that they do know things about chemistry. They may not have it formulated in their head exactly what a textbook would say, but they do understand chemistry. So it makes it less foreign to them, I think, that it's something. And if you accept those answers and you give positive feedback for those answers in the beginning, then they're much more likely, when you're studying something new, to venture out there and give you that answer and have a discussion on it and ask the question, because some things don't add up to them. And that's one thing that I do is look around the room, and our students too are very comfortable. You can tell by the video they're very comfortable and relaxed here, and they'll ask anything they don't understand. Everybody's got the orange book. We'll look on page 8. There's a picture. Anybody seen a picture like this before?
Yep.
Okay. What is that picture? We've got some things labeled on that picture. What does it say?
Neutrons.
Neutrons?
Protons.
Protons?
Electrons.
Electrons. Good. And it actually has a caption here with our picture, and it says, an oxygen atom has 8 positive protons and 8 neutrons in its nucleus. Now we're going to read and figure out what a nucleus is. And 8 negative electrons speeding around the nucleus. Now, looking at that picture, where do you think the nucleus is if the protons and neutrons are in it?
Center of it.
The center of it. And you're right, that's really the definition of a nucleus of an atom. It's the center of it. What are some of the good clues in this book? What? What do you see in that first paragraph? Okay, we're on page 8. What do you see in that first paragraph? Some of the words are different than the others. What do you see?
Bold letters.
Bold print. Right, we have bold print. And with the bold print, that lets you know that's important. So we're going to probably write something down about that.
Modeling needs to be clear and correct and concise and give the students a clear path for where the procedure is going to go. One very effective way to engage learners is by asking for personalized input. For example, if you're teaching the vocabulary word abstain, you would obviously give the definition of the word, give examples of usage of the word, and the examples that you give are most effective if they're from, as a person, the instructor's personal life or personal viewpoint. For example, I might give an example of the use of the word abstain. When I'm nervous, I abstain from coffee. Do you abstain from anything? You know, I might ask individual students. Many people abstain from different foods or activities for health reasons. Do you know somebody that abstains from dairy products or whatever? So you're making a link for the learners between that new knowledge and their personal lives. And it's remarkable how effective that is in gluing that new information to the learners and enabling them to use it more easily after that. Drawing students into participating in the modeling process is one way to extend it and help the students get a firm picture of the procedure and the new knowledge based on that model. And it helps the instructor to segue naturally into practice. Once you've engaged them, the next stage is guided practice, and it flows very naturally if you're using eliciting personal examples from that. After the explanation and modeling and giving examples, you move into guided practice. And the emphasis here is on guided practice. This is still a scaffolded process. You don't, after the explanation and examples, immediately give students a worksheet and expect them to be able to apply their knowledge. In fact, the beginning of guided practice can look a lot like modeling, because this is the we do part. The learners and the instructors start to do this process or procedure for learning together.
The class is called Reading in Science because, like I said, they're not very good readers in the beginning. And so part of that is reading aloud and making sure that they're comprehending what you read as you go. So after every paragraph, we stop and I summarize it, and then I have them summarize it later after I've modeled it a few times. So they're able to summarize the paragraphs, and when they do that and write that down, it doesn't just go in one ear and out the other.
The instructor continues to give support while gradually transferring responsibility for the learning from the instructor to the students as they are ready for it, and that's important. The instructor needs to be monitoring the students for progress so that he or she can tell when the students are ready for independent work.
Next week, we would go in and start with what did we learn last week and see how much they could tell me. How much did they retain? Because at the end of the class is important, but also next week's important, because I need to know, is it a blank slate again? You know, if it is, then we go over it again and help them see it. And sometimes, you know, it takes 2 or 3 times for it to click. And that's the nice thing about being here, is that we can do it as long as we need to for it to click.
Learners need multiple opportunities to encounter and use the new knowledge before they will have acquired it and be ready to use it. Many learners fail to learn because they're not given enough time and guidance and opportunity for practice to learn to the point where they can independently apply. I'm an ESL teacher, and it's been my experience that all ESL teaching materials are inadequate because they don't provide sufficient opportunities to practice any one point before they move on to the next unit or the next learning point. So and all of my colleagues are forever having to create and borrow and extend the opportunities for practice so that students can learn to the point of independence before they move on, and that's important. Some teachers worry that if you that guided practice might feel like busy work to the students and become boring. They feel like the students require novelty, new procedures. You need to keep the class moving or you'll lose the students. They won't be engaged and they'll become bored. Busy work is boring, but in explicit instruction, the work is not boring because the work is focused and purposeful. So continuing to accept an increasing level of responsibility for using the learning is engaging for the students, and they appreciate those multiple encounters and multiple opportunities for practice. And again, the teacher is monitoring the progress of the students and adapting the instruction to meet the students' needs at whatever point in the process you are.
Excellent. Okay, now let's come back to tendency. What is a tendency?
A habit.
All right, it's a habit. Okay.
A habit is J.
Not A, J.
Okay. Just see if y'all are paying attention.
Many instructors find that it's a useful technique to use explicit instruction moving from whole group to small group or pairs and then to individual work. Obviously, students are maximally supported in the whole group because the teacher is providing feedback and information and propping up the areas where the students have still not got a solid grasp of what's learning. When you move to small group or pair work, it's still supported, but it's supported by peers. The students can ask each other questions, can confirm each other's knowledge or grasp of what they're learning. They can decide to ask the teacher to intervene for help and instruction and feedback. And then finally you move to independent work, which is individual work, where the students are applying the knowledge that they've learned on their own. The expectations are always clear so that the students can focus on the learning, not the new procedure or the new content. The focus is on learning the process or the knowledge or the new skill. The instructor is providing feedback constantly for the students, positive corrective feedback, pointing out to the students what they're doing correctly and also what they need to work on and fix. A good guideline is when students are showing about 80% accuracy with what they're learning, they're ready for independent work. And students gain confidence and proficiency and are motivated when they can sense that they are really acquiring this knowledge and can turn around and use it. It's not frustrating, it's invigorating and engaging. It's important that the instructor be prepared to provide positive corrective feedback throughout the explicit instruction process. Giving good feedback is a skill that instructors need to work on and develop. It's not something that generally comes naturally to most instructors. Good feedback helps students become proficient more quickly by pinpointing for them the missteps in such a way that they can quickly incorporate the correction and be encouraged to continue to work and continue to strive. Feedback needs to be uniformly positive. Students don't respond well at all to negative comments. Children don't, and adults certainly don't. It's not effective and it's not necessary. Some positive statements are encouragers, but positive statements, and this is important, are also pointing out to the student what they are doing correctly so that they don't need to spend time working over the whole process. They can sort of put aside the things that they have acquired and then just focus on the parts of the process or the knowledge that they need to correct or need to work on. Some instructors try for a 3-to-1 ratio of positive comments to corrective feedback. You want to make sure that you're delivering feedback in a way that it's useful to the students and always encouraging. Another useful illustration is a hamburger. You have 2 pieces of bread, that's the positive feedback, and then the meat, the corrective feedback, is in the middle. So you lay down a slice of positive feedback, pointing out to the student what they're doing well and encouraging them. Then give the correction in a useful way, and then finish with another slice of bread, another prompt or encourager or positive comment to help them move along. If the student is receiving good feedback, that student should be able to restate what the instructor said, what the instructor gave as feedback, and be able to say what it is that they need to do to correct the problem and continue to learn. Good feedback is brief, it's precise, and it's encouraging, and it's a skill worth developing on the part of instructors.
We always survey our students at the end of each session, and that's one thing our students give us a lot of positive feedback about, is that I know this is one place that I won't be left behind. And that's really rewarding to hear, because they know, they have that faith in you that you're going to stay with them and you're going to keep on and not look down on them because they didn't get it the first time or they didn't get it quickly. Because this is not the right place for them if they learn very quickly. They're ready to move on.
Nothing is implied, nothing is assumed, everything is explicit, hence the name.